Good morning, everyone. Welcome into this video. I want to start by apologizing for kind of throwing you right into a very difficult assignment from the start. If I had known that so many of you had no prior experience with that APA format, I would start off a bit easier. What I will do in this video is just focus on some of the basics of APA and everything you're going to need to know for the quiz in week 5 and for your assignments. And hopefully you'll be able to take that information with you when you move on to your other classes where you'll need to use APA format. And so I'm going to use share screen now and show you some different tools and then show you some examples of APA style. Let's do this. Okay. So here's my browser. I thought the first thing I would show you is some of the tools we have available to us that can make the process of citing references using APA style a bit easier for us. And so here at UNT, we have access to EndNote Online. So if you can just search in Google UNT EndNote. There's going to be at the top here this information from the UNT libraries about reference managers. Now there are several reference managers and they have information guides about each of them to show you how to log in and how to use them. Essentially what these reference managers do is they will allow you to download the information you need from a database to these reference managers. And then these reference managers will allow you to directly add the reference from the reference manager into the paper. And so it will do all the formatting for you. It's essentially just click on what reference you need to add and it adds it to the paper. And so RefWorks is I think the preferred reference manager. Greg Harden talked about it last week. The reference manager that a lot of the library folks use. Zotero is a free reference manager. You do have to download it, but I've used it quite a bit and it works pretty well. Mendeley is another option, not quite as popular. EndNote is probably the most popular, and they have a paid version that you download. However, we have access to the basic version here, which is an online version of it. And you can find that by following the links here. They provide the links to where you can go to create an account. I already have an account, so this is what it looks like on the inside. But when you first get there, it's going to be a site where you need to register and create a free account. Once you create a free account, then you can log in and use that account. And there are videos on here that show how to use databases in conjunction with EndNote, as Greg Harden tried to show us a bit when he spoke to us in the first week. But these videos are permanent, so they'll show you a series of video tutorials on how to use the program. And so I won't go into really detailed instructions here, since these resources are here for you to follow in setting up your EndNote account. You can also contact Greg Harden, because that's part of his job as the liaison with the department, and he will be able to help with any questions with that platform. He is probably more familiar with it than I am, because I tend personally not to use reference managers a lot, although I would recommend you all do it because it is easier and better. It's just not something I have personally done a lot in my own work for whatever reason. But this resource is here, and like I said, if you use the reference manager, it's going to allow you to export a reference from a database to the reference manager, and then import that reference from the reference manager into your paper directly, formatted properly. You may have to double check it for some kinds of errors and things, but more or less it should be in good shape. Very similar to how I mentioned yesterday that Google Scholar provides the full reference for you. So one of the things with my assignment yesterday is I kind of tried to get a bit tricky in the sense that I wanted you to find the resources I was asking for. If you became a librarian, those are the kinds of questions you would expect to get. That's how a lot of reference interactions work. But I understand many of you aren't, and for the purposes of writing a scholarly paper, you're not going to have to go through that whole process of finding the resource before you cite it. You will be the ones finding the resources that are relevant to you. And so if you're writing your final paper on health data and HIPAA, you're going to search health data and HIPAA in here, and the articles that you're going to be interested are going to be right here. You're not going to have to go through the process of find this article that was published in 2018 or anything like that. It's going to be right here for you. So it's not going to be quite as difficult as I made it out to be yesterday. I just want to throw a challenge at some of our library students to try to figure that out. And so let's say you are looking at health data and HIPAA for your midterm and final project. And so then once you've searched for that, and again, that you can type all kinds of variations in here to try to find different results. I'm just doing a very simple, straightforward search here to give you an example. And so you have several results up here. You can see a small preview here, but of course, if you click into the article, you will get a larger abstract or potentially the full text. If you are accessing the articles from Google Scholar using a campus computer or internet, it will probably automatically pull up the full text for most of the articles. However, if you're accessing from home or on a different Wi-Fi network, then it probably won't, because the Google Scholar kind of automatically realizes, oh, you're connected to the university's Wi-Fi, you're using our university system, so you have access to these articles, and so it just kind of gives it to you. If you don't have access through here, you may be able to look at some of the relevant information in the abstract it provides. Let me see if I can find an example of that. It's hard because most of them are available to us through the library, which is very nice. But let's see, maybe this will work. Yeah. So what you have here is just the abstract, because we don't have full text access to the article just through our system. We have to find a different way to access it. And so, but there's a lot of information here in this abstract, and it's potentially enough information to tell you, oh, this is relevant to cite. But if it's not, then what you have to do is take this information and go to the UNT Library's website, and then you can search in here and see if we have access to it from here. And it looks like we maybe do. Looks like we do have access to it. So you can access it this way and then read information about it. If you're citing directly from Google Scholar, like I mentioned yesterday, you just hit the cite button and it'll provide you a citation. These citations aren't perfect all the time, but they're pretty close most of the time, and they're pretty sufficient most of the time. And so it's a good place to start, and then you can always double check the references later on as you are getting to the point where you need to ensure your references are properly formatted. I have this paper that I recently published to give some examples of references. This will be published pretty soon here. And this journal is one of the ones that uses APA style. I think this has like 200 references. I was really challenging myself to reference a lot of works here just for the fun of it. But this uses APA style, and so I wanted to use this to give you some examples of what APA style looks like. And so here, for instance, we talked about the anomalous states of knowledge a bit in the information retrieval section yesterday. And so I'm going to pull up a Word document. Put that in there. Okay. I'm also going to pull up this article so I can show you what the actual article looks like, assuming we have access to it. We do. So this is the article we're citing. And this is the correct citation that you'll have at the end. We have the author's last, this is true for all articles. You will start with the author's last name, and your entire reference list, as you notice here, is ordered in alphabetical order based on the first letter of the last name of the first author of the paper. And so if I am the first author of the paper, then it would be Lund, comma, Brady, or not Brady, B, period. So Lund, comma, B, period. If they have a middle name, you are allowed to include an additional initial for the middle name, but it is not required. And so, for instance, you can see here, this Liang only has the one initial. Also here, Ting Wang, she has only one initial. She doesn't have a middle name, which is true of many of my collaborators, as you can see. And so Lund, B, Lund, comma, B, period. I have a middle name, Daniel, D, so I added D, period, then comma, then the second author's last name, comma, first initial, period, comma, third author, last name, comma, first initial, period. And you'll notice here something I mentioned yesterday. If a paper has a lot of authors, you list the first 6 authors, then use this series of 3 dots, comma. That shows that there are more authors, but this paper actually had like 30 authors. And so it would take a lot of space to list them all. So you're only required to list the first 6. Some people will list all the authors. I recommend, if you have a paper with 30 authors, not doing that, because that takes a lot of time and space. So this is a way to speed that up, just having those 3 dots. So that's what that means. I don't think you're going to run into that too much, but you might if you're into health informatics, and some of those health research studies do use a lot of authors. And so it's possible you could run into this. Like I said, if you want to list all the authors, that's fine. But this is if that's just easier and you know how to do that and it's comfortable, this is a way to just speed it up, though, is you have the first 6 dot, 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 comma, and then regardless of whether you have 2 authors, like here in this case I highlighted, or 30 authors, like in this case, for the last author, after you have the comma here, you're going to have the ampersand, the and button that's generally above the number 7 on your keyboard. And then you list the last author, starting with the last author's last name, comma, initial, period. In this case, they have a middle name, so second initial, period. Then you're done with the names. Again, the format's very similar for all the names. It's going to be last name, comma, first initial, period, second initial, if they have a second initial. And if they have a second initial, it should show on the paper. Let me show you. Here, I don't have my middle initial listed on this paper at all. So let me pull up one of my other papers. or I believe I probably do. Let me check. Not here. This one's yeah, so here, so if there's a middle initial, like I've referenced, the actual article should have that name listed here. So it says, in this case, Brady D. Lund. So that's a case where you'd use Lund, my last name, comma, B, period, for my first initial, and then D, period, for my middle initial. So that's the only difference there. And this is exactly, if you're on an actual journal's website, if it takes you to a site like this, this is where you find that author information right here. And it'll normally, almost always on the journal website, it's going to be listed first name, middle name, last name. That's the typical naming convention in the United States. That's the order you list them. But when you're using the reference list, you list last name, comma, first initial, comma, or not comma, last name, comma, first initial, second initial. Okay. So that's the name. Then with the year or the date of publication, it will always have this format, which is you have a parenthesis or a parens, you have the year of the publication, you have the close parens, and you have another period. You can imagine this like reading a report. So pretend this is saying I read a paper by Dr. Belkin. His first name is Nicholas J. This paper was published in 1980. The title of the article is, it was published in this journal. This is the volume of the journal it was published in, and these were the pages it was on. And so you can read it that way and simply know that this is the shorthand, so you're not writing out an entire paragraph describing it. But this is what the information means as you're listing it. You have the year here in the parentheses, period. Then you're going into the article name. Now, the article will not be italicized. The article name is not italicized. If it's a book, it's italicized because that's the primary source that the content is coming from. However, with a journal article, the actual primary source, the major publication, when you pick it up off a shelf, it's not, the journal is not called Anomalous States of Knowledge as a basis for information retrieval. That's just one article within a big journal. And so in order to actually find the journal, you have to find this journal here. And that's why that's italicized, to emphasize this is actually what you're looking for. As far as if you're trying to find a physical journal, that's what it's going to say on the cover. And then you have to go inside that journal in order to find this actual article you're looking for. So article title will be the third item. And generally, whatever you're looking at, it's going to be at the top, the title. Now, this journal is a bit strange because it's a Canadian journal, so they publish the title both in English and French, because French is a common language in Canada in addition to English. However, you really, since your paper will be for an English audience, you really only need to use the English name. That might be something you encounter with journals that are published in different countries. If you did happen to include both the English and the French title because you didn't quite understand that they were two separate versions of the same title, I will not mark off any points because of that. So just be aware of that. But generally, you just need the English language title. Where did I put that? One article of mine. Let's pull that back up. So in this case, a lot of the times when you click on one of these articles, like in Google Scholar, it's going to pull up this page here. And this page really has everything you need in order to cite an APA format. The article title, the part that's going to be right here, is of course going to be this big section, this big title area right here. that lists the title of the article. On the other hand, the title of the journal tends to be up here. This is Elsevier, so this is one of the major scholarly journal publishers, and they use the same format for all their articles. So as I mentioned, it's a pretty similar format for all of these. So Library Information Science Research is the journal name. And again, that goes after the article title right here, and that is italicized to emphasize this is the name of the actual journal. So you have to go to this journal first before you're going to be able to find this article. You're going to have to go to this Canadian Journal of Information and Library Science before you can find this article. Okay. Also in Google Scholar, when you're searching in Google Scholar, the part that comes up here, that's the title of the article as well. The actual title of the journal is down here. The year it was published is right here. And the name of the authors is listed right here. So this information is all available right there as well. Then the volume and the number of the publication. This can be tricky because not all journals have numbers of issues. Some journals only publish volumes. So you'll notice with that journal I just brought up, it didn't have an issue listed because it just has volumes, and this was the 5th volume of that journal. With this one, it does have issues. So we have a volume 41, issue 4. And so in that case, you have to add (41)(4). So 41, and then in parentheses, you put 4 for the number. Then you end with the page numbers. And so depending on the journal publication and how you're accessing the article, it should have that information pretty apparent. It's at the, in this case, it's listed here that it's 133 through 143. It's also listed here that it's 133 through 143. Again, if you hit the cite button, if it's available, it should tell you the page numbers. For instance, here it says 547 through 561, but as I mentioned, it's not perfect. In this case, it doesn't tell you when you hit the cite button what the page numbers are. So you have to actually click into the file here and then scroll down a little bit, and there it has the page numbers listed. So it's 929 through 960. And so in that case, you have to go there to find that information. And that's the last information you provide, and that's not italicized. So I want to go through one example real quick. We'll use this article I already have available to show you exactly how I'm citing everything. So we'll start with, let's look at what Google Scholar provides. I'm going to copy that information. I'm going to pretend I'm working on a project for this class, and this is what I want to cite. And so we're going to copy and paste this information here. Most of this information is very accurate, and so that will be helpful in creating our citation for this paper. But we want to make sure it's all accurate, so we're going to go to the journal website. You know, we start with the last name of the author, which in this case is Lund, then comma, then first initial and second initial. So Lund is my last name. B, because we don't use the full first name, just the first initial of the first name, and then the second initial since that was provided. That's how we begin with citing the author. Then we're going to look for the year. We know the year is the next thing we need. We can see here it was published in October 2019. We don't need to know that it's in October, though, for APA. We just need to know that it was published in 2019. So we're going to add our parentheses and add 2019 in the middle, period. Now let's check the title of the article. So this is the title right here, The Citation Impact of Information Behavior Theories in Scholarly Literature. We can actually highlight that and copy it. And then we're going to paste without formatting if we do that. Or you can type it directly. And then once you have the article title there, period. Next, we're going to add the journal title. That's this up here, Library and Information Science Research. Again, so far it's looking exactly the same as what Google Scholar provided. The volume and number of the publication, again, that's provided to us here, volume 41, issue 4, 41, 4. And then the page numbers. This journal, and this is common, so I want to point it out, it does not have page numbers. Because it's all electronic publication, it only has article numbers. So this number here is where page numbers would be listed if there were page numbers, but this is actually an article number. This is the 100,981st article published. So that's what that number means. But you still cite it the same way as you do a page number, so you can include that information. If you want to make it more clear that this is the article number and you didn't like mess up and accidentally mean that it was page 100 through 981 or something, that could potentially confuse a publisher or an instructor, what you can do is type article so that they know it's article number this, period, at the end. So just a small change from what Google Scholar did. Technically, either of these work, though. The last thing you need to do, which Google Scholar did not do when we pasted it here, is you need to italicize. You need to italicize the journal name so that readers know this is the name of the journal. This is where you actually have to go to find this information, and the volume number. So everything from the start of the journal title through to this first parenthesis here needs to be italicized. The last thing you'll do when you're actually putting this into your document is you'll need to go to View, and you'll need to make sure there's an indentation. The first line, this is kind of the opposite of how you indent paragraphs often. The first line needs to be flush with the left side here. The subsequent lines, so the first part here, this top arrow here, will remain on this side, no first line indent. Then subsequently, each line should be indented a 1/2 inch. And so again, you will go from here to View, to Show panel here, ruler, click that on, and then just drag these bottom to 1/2 inch and make sure the top line remains no indentation, it remains the same place where it's supposed to be. And so this is a proper APA citation. This is a sufficient citation. You're not going to get any points marked off for it. So if this is what yours end up looking like, then that's sufficient. This is entirely the correct way to do it, though. Again, what you have is author last name, first initial, second initial. There should be a period after each of those. In parentheses, you have the year. You have the article title, period, journal title, comma, volume. Then in parentheses, you have the number of the publication, and then the page numbers. And remember, journal title and volume are italicized. If you need help with that, in addition to this video, there are many resources available within Canvas that I have added. Also, use the Purdue OWL, Purdue OWL. If you go to this website and click on APA Style Guide here, there are information about APA formatting. Look for information about in-text citations. So this shows you how to cite in text. You use parentheses, you use just the last name, so you don't use the additional first and middle initials here, just the last name, comma, year for the in-text citation. Unless you are actually citing a quote from a publication, in which case you also add the page number. Again, that's the Purdue OWL website, owl.purdue.edu. Then you're looking for APA style guide. Then you're going to reference list to see how to cite in text. Or in text citations to see the reference to cite in text. Here are examples with the page numbers. And then going to the reference list to actually see those formatting for the reference list and examples. You'll have to read through some of this to kind of understand what I just explained to you there as far as the instructions, as putting all that together. But you'll see this is much like what I noted in our instructions here. They have the last name, first initial, period, second initial, period, the and with the ampersand because there are two authors. Last name of the second author, comma, first initial, second initial, year, in parentheses, period, article title, not italicized, just the article title, journal title is italicized, volume number is italicized, number in parentheses, not italicized, and then the page numbers. And then if there is a DOI available, you can include that at the end, but you do not have to do that for this program. That is how you cite a journal article. For the most part, you are probably going to be exclusively citing journal articles for most of your classes, including this class, rather than citing books or book chapters. And so I don't want to confuse you too much at this point by introducing too much about that. I will talk about books because we have books in this class that we are assigned textbooks. And so in case you want to cite that, I'm going to talk about that now. But know that most of what you're going to be citing for your class is going to use this exact format every time. Either if it's a solo author, it'll be like that, or two authors, it'll be like this, with the main difference being the addition of the ampersand, the and sign. And so this link right here will take you directly to this page, and I'm going to include this actually. I'll post it here for now, but I'm going to include this in Canvas so that you can go directly to this page as well and follow along with this as you're citing papers and try it out a bit. Books are very similar to articles. There's just minor differences. As you can see here, you still cite the author name the same way. That's the last name, first initial, second initial. If there's a second initial, you can see here in the example they use, there isn't a second initial, so they don't worry about that. The year of publication, again, just like with the journal article, you have the year of publication within parentheses, period. We don't have an article in this case, so we're not worrying about that. We're just worrying about the main publication. So it's kind of like jumping to where the journal title is, except this is a book. So you're going to put the book title here, but it's going to be italicized just like the journal title was with the article example. So your book title will be italicized when you're citing a book. Finally, you want to list the publisher, the name of the publisher. Technically, now that many books are ebooks, you do not have to cite the place of publication. However, I recommend, because many people do look for it, that you include the place of publication. And the place of publication would be based on the city in which the book is published. And so you can see here, it's perfectly fine what they did. They listed Yale University Press as the publisher, and this is an ebook, so that's acceptable. But let's say you wanted to cite the place of publication. I happen to know that Yale University Press is located in New Haven, Connecticut. And so you just add the city. New Haven is the city in which it was published. Connecticut, there's two state code for Connecticut, and then colon Yale University. So that's the only difference you'd make if you include the place of publication. If you're looking for how I got that CT, there are, I don't want to do that, 2-letter state codes or abbreviations, that works. So you can type in 2-letter state abbreviations, pull all that information up. 2-letter country codes. If you're looking for a publication in another country, here are the 2-letter codes you use for that. And so that would be the information that would go right here. And then this would be the city. So city, comma, state or country, colon, and then the actual name of the publisher. But like I said, if it's an ebook, you technically don't have to include that. You can do this. It looks weird to me because I'm used to typing in the city and state, but this is appropriate and you won't have any points marked off for it. Again, I recommend starting with using either the reference manager, which again, there's plenty of information here to describe how to set that up and which one might be the best for you. And using the reference manager will help produce the references for you while you're looking through the databases. Or if you use Google Scholar, use the cite button in order to get basically a version of the citation already produced. Then add that to your paper and then double check to make sure everything's formatted properly. In this case, the author names are all formatted properly. They're all last name, comma, first initial, period, second initial, period, comma, so on. And you'll see the last name has the ampersand, the and sign, and then the last name. It has the year formatted properly in parentheses with a period. It has the article name formatted properly with a period. It's got the journal name formatted properly with italics. It's got the volume number formatted with italics. It's got the number of the issue in parentheses, comma, and page number. However, this article isn't only one page. So the only thing that's wrong with this is it doesn't have the correct page numbers. So you open up the actual article, you open up the PDF, and you can double check the page number. So it's 865 for the first page. It's 882 for the last page. And so this only had the first page number, but we need to add through 882. And now it is 100% correct. This is the correct format for that article. And is also indented properly. So that is what you'll need to know for APA for this class and for the program. This video is available to you and you are able to rewind, fast forward, do as much as you need to do in order to figure out how to do it. So do some practice with it. I recommend, rather than using that assignment, because that assignment's a bit more advanced than what you need to know, just practice finding some articles that you're interested in a topic. So again, if you're interested in health data and HIPAA, just type in health data and HIPAA in like Google Scholar or a library database and just practice citing some of these articles. You can check the cite feature to find the potential citation, and then you can double check by clicking into the article and actually looking at the information they provide. In this case, the author names are down here. You do not include this information. This is just telling you they have a JD degree, they have a PhD degree. That's not part of their name. That's just their degrees that they have. So you don't include that as part of their name. So you're just doing the I, Glenn Cohen as the author and Michelle M. Mello. So it would be Cohen as the last name, comma, I, G, comma, and Mello, comma, M, M. Those are the authors. Then in parentheses, 2018 is the year here. This is the article title here, HIPAA and the Protecting Health Information in the 21st Century. The article title is down, or the journal title is down here, JAMA. Volume, you'll see that the issue is already in parentheses for you. And then the page numbers. That's all the information you need. It's generally always going to be available directly on the article page like that. But a lot of it is also available just by using the cite button or by going on the library databases is provided on the main screen. You will also, from the library website, as will be noted in these videos here, if you decide to go to this website and access information about these reference tools, that you can download the information directly from our library databases to a reference manager and then import that into an article. So that's an overview of what you'll need to know about APA, about reference managers, and about putting articles, citations together. If you still have questions that were not answered by the video, you're welcome to email me or stop by my office anytime. I'll be available to chat with you. But please go ahead and watch this video, look through all this content I pointed out. I'm going to include a link to this reference manager page and to the Purdue OWL page. So work on that a bit. Work through some examples if you need to in order to see that if you can put together the full references. And then if you're still struggling, go ahead and contact me. So that's what I'll have for my video today. Like I said, if you have any questions, contact me. And otherwise, we'll see you all next Tuesday.